Kids talk about meditation, a journey through calmness and wonder. Imagine a room filled with the buzz of children's voices, giggling, chattering, sometimes bouncing off the walls with laughter. There are crayons on tables, drawings half finished, a plastic Buddha statue tucked into the corner next to a low altar, and the faint smell of warm soy milk from a snack break earlier. And then, like someone turned down the volume knob on life itself, quiet, not the tense, heavy silence of scolding or boredom, but a soft, gentle silence, the kind you feel, not just hear. That's the magic of what was happening in room 4B at the little Dharma Sunday school, tucked between the trees in a small community temple just outside the city. The children, no older than 10, sat cross-legged on little cushions, some fidgeting, some completely still, all trying. Eyes closed, hands resting on their laps, each child breathing in and out, slowly, mindfully, quietly. You wouldn't think it just by looking, but something extraordinary was taking place. This was not just another Sunday. This was a journey into the inner world, guided not by monks or great masters or ancient scriptures, but by the voices of the children themselves. The first time Ava, a spirited 8-year-old with a headband always slightly askew, learned to meditate, she thought it would be boring. At first, I was like, why do I have to sit still? I want to go outside. She laughs when she remembers it. But then we played this game called Find Your Breathing. We had to close our eyes and try to feel where the air goes. And I don't know, it was like, suddenly, the world got quiet inside me. Even my brain got quiet. For a child who usually couldn't sit still through lunch, something had shifted. And she wasn't alone. Noah, age 10, had always been the quiet one, thoughtful, the kind of child who watches ants instead of crushing them. Meditation came naturally to him, but he never knew it had a name. I used to sit under the tree in my backyard and just watch the sky. I didn't really do anything. But when the teacher said, let your thoughts come and go like clouds, I thought, hey, that's what I already do. When he shared this with the group, another child gasped and said, wait, you can watch your thoughts like TV. And just like that, another layer of wonder unfolded. Every Sunday, more than just meditation techniques were shared. The children listened to Jyotika, tales, ancient stories of the Buddha's past lives, Lij told with wide-eyed fascination and deep curiosity. One Sunday, the story was about a king who gave up his kingdom to protect a deer. Afterward, Mila, age 7, sat very still and said, I think that deer felt safe. That's what I want people to feel around me. That kind of insight didn't come from textbooks, that it came from stillness, from listening, from a space that allowed them to be. There was something pure and heart-stirring about the way these children described their practice. It helps when I fight with my brother, said Jackson, 9, because instead of yelling, I just breathe like the teacher showed us. And then I forget why I was mad. His sister, Lily, 6, piped up. Sometimes when Mummy's sad, I tell her to be like a calm lake, like we learned. I think it helps her heart smile again. It wasn't complicated, it was true. These weren't little monks in training. They weren't perfect. Sometimes they fell asleep during meditations. Sometimes someone would burp or giggle and the whole room would erupt in laughter. Sometimes no one could sit still at all. But every time they returned to the breath, every time they remembered, in and out, it was like returning home. During one session, the teacher lit a candle and said, this flame is your mind. When you're angry, it shakes. When you're still, it's bright and steady. The children stared in awe. One by one, they shared. My flame shakes when I don't get what I want. Mine goes out when I cry. But when I think of someone I love, it glows bigger. What adult could explain the mind more simply? These weren't just moments of learning. They were moments of transformation. Like when Kayla, who used to throw tantrums at school, began sitting quietly in a corner instead. Or when twins, Max and Leo, known for fighting, started ending arguments with, let's just breathe and try again. Or when 8-year-old Emily, who had lost her grandma, said after meditation, I still miss her, but when I sit, I feel close to her. Even grief softened in the presence of breath. One day, the children were asked to close their eyes and imagine the whole world breathing with them. They sat quietly, and for a few minutes, Africa breathed with them. Mountains breathed with them. The oceans, the birds, the trees, the stars, all breathing gently together. A tiny hand went up. So, if I breathe kindly, Can it help the whole world be kinder too? There was silence in the room. Then, the teacher whispered, "Yes, yes it can." And somehow, everyone knew it was true. This is just the beginning of their story. The story of children who found calm in chaos, who found stillness in a noisy world, who found their hearts through silence. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into their homes, their challenges, their friendships, and how meditation became their quiet superpower in the everyday mess of life. But for now, if you've ever doubted that stillness could live in the hearts of children, listen again. To their breath. To their joy. To their truth. There's a secret most people never learn until much later in life, if ever. That peace isn't found in silence around you. It's found in silence within you, and in the most surprising way, it was the children who were teaching this to the world, not with fancy words or scholarly books, but with their own stories, their messes, their fears, their breakthroughs, their wonder. This part of their journey didn't happen on meditation cushions or inside classroom walls. It happened on playgrounds, in crowded kitchens, at school desks under flickering fluorescent lights, in moments when things didn't go their way. And yet, something different happened, because meditation wasn't just a thing they did anymore. It was a way they lived. Take Zach, age 9, a bubbly kid who loved dinosaurs and disliked bedtime. One evening, his younger brother accidentally broke his favorite T-Rex figurine. In the past, that would have meant yelling, tears, slamming doors. But this time, Zach walked out of the room. Found his breath, and returned quietly to say, "It's okay. I liked that toy, but I like you more." His mum, watching from the hallway, wept quietly, not because of the toy but because she realized her son had grown into something rare, a child with inner power. Then there was Priya, aged 10, who often felt invisible at school, not bullied, just unnoticed. Every lunch break she sat alone, nibbling on chapati and watching others laugh and play. She felt like a background character in everyone else's story, until one day, during her usual lunch solitude, she remembered her teacher's voice, "When you feel alone, sit with yourself like you're your own best friend." So she did, closed her eyes, breathed in, breathed out, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled, not because someone else saw her, but because she saw herself. And suddenly, that was enough. At home, meditation became a kind of medicine. Not the kind you swallow, but the kind you practice. Jaden's father was going through a difficult time out of work, constantly stressed. Their house echoed with heavy silences and the occasional argument. But Jaden, all of 8 years old, would walk into the middle of it, sit cross-legged on the floor, and say, "I'm meditating. You can join me if you want." His father didn't join at first, but on the 5th day, he did. No words, just breath. That was the first time in weeks they sat together peacefully, not as father and son in crisis, but as two human beings. Healing. It wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was simple, and that's what made it profound. Lena used to hate brushing her teeth. Every night was a battle. But one night, she decided to make brushing a mindfulness practice, just like the monks in the story her teacher told about, the monk who was mindful with every step. She brushed slowly, noticing the minty foam, the feel of the bristles, the tickle on her tongue. Afterward, she ran into the living room and declared, "I think I felt every second of that." Her parents laughed, but it stuck. Now brushing her teeth was her meditation time. Every moment, no matter how small, became sacred. Teachers at their schools started noticing changes. There's something different about your students, one teacher said to the Dharma school's head. They don't yell during group work. They listen. They let each other speak. When asked how they learned that, one girl simply replied, "Because in meditation class, we take turns breathing." It sounded silly to the teacher until she saw it work again and again, because breathing wasn't just about oxygen, it was about awareness. But one of the most touching stories came from a boy named Omar. He was new to the country, his family having fled from war. He didn't speak much English yet, and often kept to himself. But during one class, when asked to draw what meditation felt like, he drew a single candle in a dark room. When asked to explain, he used 3 words, "Light, in me." That was all. And yet, that was everything. That the whole room went silent, because sometimes you don't need many words to express the deepest truths. Meditation helped them deal with anxiety, frustration, confusion, grief. It didn't erase those things, it just helped them, hold them gently. like when 6-year-old Elsie lost her cat and came to class with tear-stained cheeks. She sat quietly that day, didn't talk much, but at the end, she whispered to her teacher, "When I breathe, I think maybe my cat can feel it too, like she knows I still love her." Grief wasn't something she needed to hide. It became something she could breathe with. Even their friendships changed. Arguments still happened, of course. Kids are kids, but now, instead of screaming and storming away, they'd pause. "Let's have a minute of calm" was a phrase that started floating around the playground. One time, 2 boys fought over a soccer ball. Instead of the usual shouting, "Match," they both sat down, backs to each other, and breathed. The teacher watched in stunned silence. After a minute, one boy turned and said, "You kick first, I'll get the next turn." Recess resumed. The game went on, but something was different. These weren't just moments of quiet, these were moments of transformation. The Dharma teacher once said, "Every time you breathe kindly, you're planting a tree in your mind. Someday, you'll have a forest of peace." And slowly, week by week, seed by seed, that forest began to grow. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it was real. As real as their laughter, as real as their tears, as real as the steady beat of a young heart, learning how to love the world and itself. Every child has a storm inside them. It might be tiny, a swirl of nervousness before a spelling test, or it might be massive, a hurricane of fear when parents fight, when someone moves away, or when the world just feels too loud. But what if, even in the middle of that storm, a child could find a breath, not to stop the storm, but to stay steady inside it? This part of our story is about those breaths, the breaths between tears, the breaths before decisions, the breaths that changed everything. Meet Leo, 10 years old, shy, and a bit of a perfectionist. His notebooks were spotless, his socks always matched, his hands never quite stopped fidgeting. One day at school, Leo got his math test back with a big red 3 out of 10. It felt like the floor opened beneath him. He clenched his fists, his eyes burned. But then he remembered what his Dharma teacher had said the week before. When something hurts, don't fight it. Breathe through it. Let it come. Let it go. So Leo did something incredible. He put down his pencil, closed his eyes, and breathed. 1, 2, 3. By the time the bell rang, he wasn't smiling, but he wasn't broken either. Just quiet, still, holding himself gently in the aftermath. He told his mum later that day, "The test felt like a storm, but I had an umbrella." Storms came in all shapes. For Maya, it was stage fright. She loved music, but the moment she stood in front of an audience, her voice vanished. During a school talent show, she stood frozen, clutching her little ukulele. The crowd waited. A boy coughed. Someone whispered. Maya's fingers trembled. Then right before she ran off stage, she remembered a meditation from Sunday class. Imagine your breath as a friend, a warm friend who holds your hand. She inhaled, held it, let it go, and then, without even realizing how, she sang, softly at first, then stronger. When she finished, the applause made her cry, not because of the claps, but because she had done it. She had met her storm and stayed. In another city, far from Maya, lived Thomas, age 11. He had just learned that his parents were separating. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to cry. He didn't even want to feel. One afternoon, he locked himself in the bathroom and just sat, remembering the loving kindness meditation his teacher guided them through. He began repeating the words silently. May I be safe. May I be strong. May I face this with courage. Over and over. Until slowly, the tightness in his chest softened. It didn't fix everything, but for the first time in days, he felt like he had a lighthouse inside him. Children used meditation in the unlikeliest places. Ava used it before every dentist appointment. Noah used it on airplanes. Miller used it when her baby brother cried and she felt overwhelmed. One boy even meditated in the principal's office, waiting for a punishment after a fight. He later told his teacher, "I figured, if I'm gonna be in trouble, might as well breathe through it." They all laughed, but there was wisdom there, a deep, quiet courage. During one Dharma session, their teacher drew a picture on the board, a boat, in a storm, waves crashing, lightning striking. Then he drew a little figure in the boat, and wrote beside it, "Meditation isn't the calm sea, it's being steady in the storm." That day, the children shared their own storms. Some were silly. My little sister took my popsicle. Some were serious. I miss my dad. He lives far now. Some were private, only shared through tears, not words. But every child found something in that room, a place to name their storm, and tools to face it. The transformation wasn't magical. It was practical. It showed up in homework, stress, in sibling arguments, in nightmares and late-night worries. Like Sam, who used to wake up screaming. Now, he kept a tiny sticker on his lamp that said, "One breath at a time." When fear arose, he'd whisper it aloud, and somehow, that made all the difference. The children weren't becoming Zen masters or saints. They still got upset, still fought over crayons, or blamed the wrong sibling. But now, there was space between the trigger and the reaction. A pause, a choice. Like little Jack, who used to lash out when teased. One day, someone called him weird for bringing rice and curry for lunch. Jack clenched his fists, but then paused, breathed, and said, "I like weird. It means I'm different, not boring." The other kids blinked, then nodded. Jack didn't fight. He responded. And in that moment, he was the strongest one on the playground. What the children were learning, what they were becoming, was something the world deeply needed. Not louder, not faster, but wiser. And the wisdom wasn't from books. It came from the breath, the quiet, the stillness between the storms. As part 3 ends, one little story lingers. On a rainy afternoon, during a school fire drill, a group of children had to stand outside, shivering, umbrellas dripping. Instead of complaining, Emily, age 7, looked up and said, "Let's meditate on the rain." And so, 5 small children closed their eyes and breathed as rain tapped on their hoods. Cold fingers curled into warm palms, and the sound of the world became a lullaby. They weren't fighting the storm. They were dancing with it. It was a sunny afternoon when a teacher in a Dharma school held up a handful of seeds in front of the class and said, "These are just like your thoughts. What you plant and water every day will grow." The children looked on, wide-eyed. "Kindness," she said, placing one seed in the soil. "Gratitude, patience." And then she held up a black seed. "This is anger. If you water this, it'll grow too." She paused, then smiled. But meditation helps you choose which seeds to water. And that's when everything began to change. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in the quiet blossoming of the children's inner worlds. This part of their journey was about the secret. Gardens inside each of them, gardens only they could tend. Let's begin with Hannah. Hannah had a worry garden. Every day, new weeds sprouted. What if I fail the test? What if my mum gets sick? What if I say something dumb? They tangled her thoughts, made her chest tight, made it hard to sleep. But in her Dharma class, her teacher guided them through a meditation. See your worry like clouds, and now, gently blow them away with your breath. So Hannah practiced, one breath, one cloud. Sometimes the sky cleared, sometimes it didn't. But Hannah learned something powerful. Even cloudy skies are part of nature. They don't stay forever, and that changed everything. Aiden's garden was different. His was wild. Anger bloomed there, thorny and sharp. He wasn't a bad kid. He just had big feelings. And when he got upset, it came out in slamming doors, harsh words, and long silences. One day, after an especially hard outburst, his meditation teacher handed him a blank page. "Draw what your anger feels like," she said gently. He drew a volcano. Fiery, dangerous, lonely. Then she asked, "Where does the volcano rest?" Aiden blinked. "I don't know. Let's find it in your breath." That day, Aiden learned to notice the moment before the volcano erupted, the little rumble in his chest, the heat rising in his ears. That moment became his garden gate. And with practice, he learned to choose whether or not to walk through. Not all gardens were heavy. Ella had a joy garden. Every time she meditated, she imagined planting laughter, kindness, giggles and twirls. Her mind felt like a playground, sunny, free. One day, she asked her teacher, "Is it okay to smile when I meditate?" The teacher smiled. "Ella, that's the best kind." Ella's laughter became a sound others waited for in class. It reminded them that meditation wasn't just about calm, it was also about joy. These inner gardens shaped the way that children interacted with the world. They weren't perfect, but they were growing. One boy, Daniel, used to dread the mornings, rushing, shouting, losing socks. Then his teacher gave the class a morning mantra. "May this day be peaceful. May I be patient. May I plant kindness." He wrote it on a sticky note, stuck it on the fridge. At first it felt silly, but after a few days he noticed something. His mornings felt different, not because the world changed, but because he had parents. Started noticing, too. Ravi's mum shared that when she was upset one evening, Ravi sat beside her quietly and whispered, "Breathe, Oma. Your heart needs water, not fire." She burst into tears not from sadness, but from awe. Her little boy had become her teacher. Even mistakes became part of their growth. Isabella forgot to meditate one whole week. She was embarrassed, felt like she'd failed. But her teacher told her, the mind is like a garden. Sometimes we forget to water it, but it forgives. It always gives us another chance. Isabella smiled and whispered, "Then tomorrow, I'll plant a sunflower." During one class, they did a group visualization. Each child closed their eyes and imagined walking through their own inner garden. Some saw waterfalls, some saw tall trees, some saw tiny flowers growing through cracks. But all of them felt one thing: peace. Later, when asked to describe their garden in one word, the answers came slowly and sweetly. Home, safe, magical, quiet, love. That's when the teacher whispered, "The most beautiful places in this world might only exist inside you." The story doesn't end in the classroom. Their gardens followed them. 2 noisy hallways, 2 family dinners, 2 bad dreams and good report cards. Whenever they were overwhelmed, scared, confused, they remembered, "I can go to my garden. I can breathe." They weren't running away. They were returning home to a part of themselves, untouched by chaos. And maybe the most beautiful part, they started helping others tend their gardens. 2. Siblings, classmates, even strangers. One time, an older student was crying near the school steps. A small boy from the Dharma class sat beside him, didn't ask anything, just breathed with him. After a while, the older boy asked, "What are you doing?" The little one replied, "I'm helping you find your garden gate." The older boy smiled. Maybe he didn't understand fully, but something opened, and that breath, just one, was enough. To begin, it was the last session of the term. The meditation hall was lit with soft lanterns. Children sat cross-legged on mats, their little eyes reflecting candlelight, their hearts full of something they couldn't quite name. Their teacher stood in front of them and said, "Today, we are not just meditating, we are remembering, and we are offering. We are becoming light for the world." And with that, a bell rang softly. One by one, the children closed their eyes, and their final journey together began. Some remembered where they started. Mil, who used to fidget every 3 seconds, now sat like a small mountain. Noah, who once hated silence, now craved it like a soft blanket. Arya, who used to cry during thunderstorms, now whispered, "Storms are just sky breathing loudly." They weren't perfect meditators, but that was never the point. They had changed, grown. Opened. They had touched something quiet and kind inside themselves, and now they were ready to carry it forward. The teacher spoke. "We live in a world that rushes, but you have learned to pause. The world wants to shout, but you know how to listen. The world forgets to feel, but you have remembered how." And so they breathed, not to escape the world, but to prepare to meet it with presence. That evening, each child shared what meditation had become for them. Emma said, "It's like a friend in my pocket. I can take it anywhere." Tyler said, "It's like a light switch in my head. When things feel dark, I flip it on." Sophie whispered, "It's like hugging myself from the inside." And little Jonah, only 6, grinned and said, "It's like being a tree. I still feel the wind, but I don't fall down." The room went silent. Tears shimmered in adult eyes. A 6-year-old had just explained enlightenment. They didn't always use big words like mindfulness or consciousness, but they knew what it felt like. The quiet after crying, the steadiness before answering, the peace in forgiving someone who didn't even say sorry. They knew that the mind wasn't something to fight. It was something to guide, something to understand. Before they left, each child was handed a small candle, not to light now but to take home. The teacher explained, "This candle is your practice. Sometimes it will flicker, sometimes it will go out, but you can always light it again. And when the world feels dark, light yours first, then help someone else light theirs." The children held the candles like sacred treasures. Weeks passed. The Dharma classes ended, but something stayed. Zara lit her candle when her cat died. Max lit his after failing a test. Nina lit hers after her best friend moved away. And each time they remembered, "This breath is mine. This peace is possible. This moment is enough." One Sunday, the children returned not for class, but for a celebration. They wore white clothes. They brought flowers, and in the center of the hall, they built a tree of light. Every child placed their candle at its base. Dozens of tiny flames flickering. Alive. The room glowed. No speeches, no performances, just silence, breath, and the sound of hearts wide open. As the evening closed, the teacher offered one final blessing. You are not children who meditate. You are guardians of peace. The world needs your calm, your kindness, your courage to pause. So carry it forward, into classrooms, into homes, into playgrounds and cities and lonely hearts. Wherever you go, let your stillness be a gift. And so, they did, one breath at a time, one moment of kindness, one pause before shouting, one silent offering in a world too loud. The children didn't just learn how to meditate, they learned how to be, and through their little hearts, the world changed, just a little, just enough.